My name is Charlotte, and for most of my adult life, I believed that love, or at least approval, could be earned through achievement. I thought that if I just accomplished enough, if I was just smart enough, my family would eventually see me. Now at 32, I understand that some people will only ever see what they want to see. My family of venture capitalists sees my brother, Leo, the celebrated CEO of a tech giant. They see his impending IPO, the mountain of money, the magazine covers. They look at me, a programmer for a small, non-profit, open-source collective, and they see a hobby, a cute, intellectual dead end. What they don't see, what my brother has no idea I know, is that the entire glittering empire he built, his wildly popular app ConnectSphere, runs on a heart I built. The core algorithm was stolen, lifted directly from a free project I poured my soul into. I'm not filing a lawsuit. Lawsuits are for lawyers, and for a kind of justice I no longer believe in. Instead, I've accepted an invitation. My brother, in a stunning act of hubris, has asked me to be a keynote speaker at his IPO conference. He thinks it's a charming PR move, the indie developer sister giving her blessing. He doesn't know that my keynote presentation has only one slide, and he doesn't know that I'm about to publicly demonstrate how to disable his entire multi-billion-dollar platform with a single line of my own code. This isn't just about revenge, it's about setting the record straight, in front of the entire world. Before I dive into the story of how I found myself on that stage, with my finger hovering over the enter key that would detonate my brother's career, do me a favor, let me know where in the world you're watching from in the comments below. I find it fascinating to see how far these stories travel. And if you've ever felt underestimated or had your passion dismissed as a joke, go ahead and hit that like button so I know I'm not alone. And of course, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to join this incredible community of people who know that sometimes the quietest voices have the most powerful things to say. The dining room table of my childhood home was less a piece of furniture and more a battlefield disguised as mahogany. It was my father's boardroom, my mother's social stage, and my brother Leo's winner's circle. For me, it was a place of strategic invisibility. From a young age, I learned that the currency of our family was not love, but leverage. It was ROI, market share, and quantifiable success. Our dinner conversations were a relentless volley of financial jargon. We're looking at a 7-to-1 return on the Series B, my father would announce, spearing a piece of asparagus as if it were a rival company. My mother, whose portfolio was just as aggressive but more focused on lifestyle brands, would counter, the wellness sector is completely undervalued. I found a startup that's disrupting the organic textile space. Leo, even as a teenager, played the game flawlessly. He was 2 years older than me, and where I was quiet and observant, he was a supernova of charisma. He soaked up their language, their values, their entire worldview, and reflected it back at them, magnified. He was their perfect creation. I remember one dinner with excruciating clarity. I was 17, and I had just won a national coding competition. It wasn't a school thing, it was something I had pursued on my own. Spending hundreds of hours in my room, teaching myself languages my school didn't offer, wrestling with complex problems just for the thrill of solving them. The prize was a scholarship and a bit of recognition in a few niche online communities. I was buzzing with pride when my father asked the obligatory, "So what's new with you, Charlotte?" I took a deep breath. "I won the K&R Memorial Prize," I said, my voice a little too loud in the sudden quiet. My father frowned, swirling the wine in his glass. "The what? Is that a new bond fund?" Leo chuckled, a soft, dismissive sound. "It's a nerd thing, Dad. For programming." My mother tried to be diplomatic, which in her hands was a weapon of soft-edged condescension. "Oh, that's lovely, dear. Did you get a little trophy?" I tried to explain the significance, the difficulty of the problems, the thousands of entrants. "It comes with a $10,000 scholarship," and my father's eyes lit up at the number. 10,000. "Well, that's not bad. You should invest it. Talk to my guy. he can put it in a low-risk index fund. Good for you for finally thinking about your financial future. They had completely missed the point. It wasn't about the money, it was about the work, the beauty of the logic, the elegance of a solution. But in their world, if something couldn't be quantified on a balance sheet, it was functionally invisible. The conversation moved on to Leo's summer internship at a hedge fund. Before my plate was even cleared, I felt a familiar cold weight settle in my stomach. I wasn't just unseen, I was untranslatable. My language was worthless here. That was the pattern for the next decade. I went to university, studying computer science and mathematics. Not because they pushed me to, but almost in spite of them. They wanted me to go into finance, or corporate law, respectable fields, where the path to a corner office was clearly paved. Programming, to them, was a blue-collar trade for people who couldn't handle the boardroom. "You're a brilliant girl, Charlotte," my mother would say over the phone, her voice laced with a gentle disappointment. "Why do you want to be a technician? You should be the one hiring the technicians." Leo, meanwhile, was rocketing through the stratosphere they had built for him. He got his MBA from a top-tier school, did a stint at a prestigious consulting firm, and then, with a hefty seed investment from our parents and their network, launched his first startup. It failed, but in their world, even failure was a status symbol. "He learned so much," my father would say. "It's the cost of doing business at that level." His second startup, a middling success, was acquired for a sum that had my parents bragging for months. All the while, I was finding my own way, far from their orbit. After graduation, I turned down lucrative offers from big tech firms. The sterile corporate environments, the focus on proprietary, lockdown systems, it all felt like a gilded cage. Instead, I joined an open-source collective called the Praxis. We were a small, scattered group of developers, digital nomads, and idealists from around the world, connected by a shared belief. We believed that code, like knowledge, should be free. We worked on projects that we felt made the world a little better, a little more connected, a little more equitable. We built tools for journalists in repressive regimes, data-sharing platforms for climate scientists, and secure communication apps for activists. We didn't have stock options or lavish offices. We had a shared server, an encrypted chat channel, and a profound sense of purpose. My family called it my digital soup kitchen. At our annual Christmas gathering, my father, flush with holiday cheer and expensive scotch, cornered me by the fireplace. "Charlotte," he said, putting a heavy hand on my shoulder, "I'm proud of you for having a heart. I really am, but at some point, this charity work has to end. You're not a child anymore. When are you going to get a real job?" I remember just staring into the fire, feeling the heat on my face, and thinking, this is more real than anything you've ever done. My world was my small apartment, filled with second-hand books and monitors, displaying cascading lines of code. It was late-night video calls with Alex, my closest collaborator in the collective. Alex was based in Berlin, a lanky, cynical idealist, with a laugh that could cut through any amount of gloom. He and I were the primary architects of our most ambitious project yet. Aether was our masterpiece. It was a new kind of algorithm, a decentralized protocol for linking disparate data points without a central server. It was designed to learn and adapt, creating intuitive connections between information in a way that felt almost organic. It was complex, elegant, and we believed, revolutionary. We spent 2 years building it, line by painstaking line. We argued over syntax, celebrated breakthroughs at 3 in the morning, and poured all of our passion into this shared creation. For us, Aether wasn't about monetization. It was a statement. It was a tool for a more open internet, a way to break down the data silos that the big corporations were building. We released it, as we always did, under a permissive open-source license, free for anyone to use, modify, or build upon. We were proud. It was our gift to the digital world. One Tuesday, I made the mistake of trying to show it to my family. Leo was in town, and my mother had insisted on a family dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant, where the food was artfully arranged in tiny, expensive portions. The conversation, predictably, was all about Leo. His new venture, ConnectSphere, was still in stealth mode, but the buzz was already deafening. The pre-seed valuation is staggering, my father boasted to the sommelier. Leo is changing the game. Leo, looking impossibly polished in a tailored suit, waved it off with practiced humility. We're just getting started, Dad, but the potential is there. During a lull, my mother turned to me, a look of deliberate inclusion on her face. And what about you, Charlotte? Still tinkering in your little computer club? The phrase felt like a physical jab. I took a breath and pulled out my phone. Actually, I said, my voice steady, my collective just released our biggest project ever. It's called Aether. I tried to explain the concept, the decentralized network, the way it could link information. Their eyes glazed over. I showed them a simple visualization on my phone, a swirling constellation of data points, finding each other. My father squinted at it. So it's a search engine? No, it's more of an intuition engine. I tried. Leo leaned over, glanced at the screen for less than a second, and smirked. Cute, Char. Very academic. Let me know when you figure out how to sell it. He then launched into an anecdote about a meeting with a Saudi sovereign wealth fund. And just like that, I vanished again. I put my phone away, the glowing constellation of Aether seeming to mock me from the screen. It was beautiful, it was powerful, and to them, it was utterly worthless. That was the last time I ever tried to show them my work. I retreated fully into my world, the one where what I did mattered. I focused on improving Aether, on supporting the small community of developers who had started using it. I let the world of venture capital and my family's relentless pursuit of wealth fade into the background noise of my life. I found a quiet, stable peace in my work, in the knowledge that I was building something meaningful, even if only a handful of people in the world understood it. In the first tremor came on a Thursday morning. I was on a call with Alex, troubleshooting a minor bug in a new Aether module. He was quiet for a long time, which was unusual. Normally, our calls were a rapid-fire exchange of ideas and friendly insults. You all right, Alex? I asked. You've gone quiet. I heard him sigh, a staticky sound from halfway across the world. Char, he said, his voice strained. I need you to look at something, and I need you to not freak out. That's a terrible way to start a sentence, I replied, a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. He sent me a link. It was to a glossy tech magazine's website. The headline read, ConnectSphere, the app that reads your mind. A first look at the tech that will change everything. My heart began to beat a little faster. It was Leo's company. The article was gushing, filled with superlatives about the app's magical ability to sync a user's entire digital life, emails, social media, photos, calendars, into one seamless, predictive feed. It doesn't just show you your data, the journalist wrote. It understands it. It knows what you need before you do. The core algorithm is nothing short of revolutionary. A cold dread washed over me. Alex, what is this? Just download the beta, Char. Run a diagnostic. I think we have a problem. My hands felt clumsy as I navigated to the beta sign-up page. I installed ConnectSphere on a sandboxed virtual machine, a clean environment where I could poke and prod its insides without it touching my system. The interface was slick, a beautiful chrome shell of blues and gentle gradients. It was undeniably well designed. I linked a few dummy accounts, and it began to work its magic, pulling in data and arranging it with an eerie prescience. It felt familiar, too familiar. I closed the front-end interface and opened a terminal window, my fingers flying across the keyboard, typing commands that would let me listen to the app's network traffic, to see how it was talking to its own servers. And then I saw it. It was a flicker at first, a tiny data packet with a header that made my blood run cold. It was a name I knew better than my own. Ether_node_handshake. It was our protocol. My protocol. It couldn't be. Maybe they had built something similar. Parallel evolution was common in software, but this was too close. Alex and I had our own unique, slightly inefficient way of handling the initial connection between nodes. We knew it was suboptimal, but we thought it was charming. We called it the drunken handshake and left a comment in the code to that effect, / the drunken handshake protocol. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done. It was our inside joke, buried in thousands of lines of code. My hands were shaking now. I had to get deeper. I needed to see the source code, but that was proprietary, locked away on their corporate servers. But I didn't need to see their code. I just needed to see how it behaved. I wrote a small script, a test designed to trigger a very specific edge case in Ether, a situation we had debated for weeks before settling on a solution that was mathematically elegant but computationally strange. I ran the script against the ConnectSphere app. I watched the output scroll down my screen, and there it was, the exact peculiar result that only Ether, in its unique configuration, would produce. They hadn't just been inspired by it. They hadn't just built something similar. They had taken it. They had taken Ether, my Ether, and put it in a cage. And as I stared at the screen, I scrolled through the diagnostic logs one more time, and then I saw something that made me stop breathing. It was a function call, deep in the compiled code, that had been obfuscated, its name scrambled into a meaningless string of characters. But I recognized the function signature, the number and type of arguments it accepted. It was a function I had written, a function I had named Ether, sever _all _nodes. It was a debugging tool, a kill switch I had built to reset the entire network during testing. It was never ever meant to be in a production build. It was a loaded gun, and they had pointed it at their own head, and my brother was pulling the trigger. The first emotion was not anger. It was a profound, hollowing grief, the kind that settles in your bones and makes the world feel thin and unreal. Leo, my brother, the golden child, the one who had everything, had stolen the one thing that was truly mine. The work I had poured my heart into, the work they had all dismissed as a nerd thing, a hobby, was now the engine driving his billion-dollar valuation. The irony was so crushingly perfect, it felt like a cosmic joke. I sat there in the glow of my monitors, for what must have been an hour, just rerunning the tests, staring at the proof. My code, my logic, my digital fingerprint, was all over their crime scene. The rage came later. It was a slow rising tide, hot and acidic. How dare he, stand on that stage, in his perfect suit, and talk about innovation, while his entire company was a monument to plagiarism. How dare my parents toast his success, a success built on the theft of my intellectual labor, the very labor they had spent years belittling. I paced my small apartment, a caged animal. Every object seemed to mock me. The textbooks on my shelves, the half-empty coffee mugs, the whiteboard covered in Aether-related diagrams. It was the landscape of my life, the life they considered a failure, and it had all been strip-mined for his glory. My first instinct was to call him, to scream, to demand an explanation. I grabbed my phone, my thumb hovering over his name in my contacts. Leo. What would I even say? Hey Leo, it's your sister, the hobbyist. Just a quick question. Did you intentionally steal my life's work? Or was it just a happy accident? I imagined his response, the smooth, practiced denial, the gaslighting. Charlotte, you're being emotional. Our team is the best in the world. I think you're just seeing patterns where there are none. Or worse, the patronizing admission. Oh that? Yeah. One of my junior guys found some open source stuff that saved us some time. You should be flattered, really. It's finally being put to good use. The thought made me sick. A direct confrontation would be useless. It would be my word against his army of lawyers and PR agents. I would be painted as the jealous, unstable sister, trying to leech off her successful brother's fame. They would bury me. Alex was my anchor. I called him, my voice tight and brittle. I laid it all out. The proof, the kill switch, the sick feeling in my gut. He listened without interrupting, the silence on his end, a comforting presence. When I finished, all I could hear was his slow, steady breathing. So he said, his voice grim, the prodigal son is also a thief. Color me, shocked. His cynicism, was a strange comfort. What do we do, Alex? A lawsuit? Go to the press? A lawsuit is a war of attrition, Char, he said. They have more money, more lawyers, more everything. They'll drown us in paperwork until we give up or go broke. The press? Maybe. But it's a messy fight. It becomes a he said, she said. He was right. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. They had taken my work, and there was nothing I could do. They had won. It was the story of my life, just on a grander scale. They left the kill switch in, I said, the words feeling heavy and dangerous in my mouth. They didn't even sanitize the code. They just wrapped it in a pretty bow and shipped it. There was a long pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, thousands of miles away. That, he said slowly, is more than negligence. That's arrogance, Charlotte. The kind of arrogance that builds empires, and if you're lucky, topples them. A vulnerability like that, it's not just a bug, it's a self-destruct button. We both sat with that thought for a moment. The air crackled with unspoken possibility. It was a terrible, beautiful idea. A week later, the email arrived. It was from the official Connect Sphere corporate address, the design sleek and minimalist. The subject line read, "An invitation to inspire." I almost deleted it, assuming it was a generic PR blast. But I opened it. "Dear Miss Charlotte Vance," it began. The formal use of my last name, a small, absurd detail. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Connect Sphere, Incorporated, and our CEO, Leo Vance, we would be honored if you would consider being a keynote speaker at our upcoming pre-IPO conference, The Future, Connected. I read it 3 times. It had to be a mistake, a cruel joke. They wanted me, the charity worker, to speak at their crowning moment of capitalist glory. The email went on to explain. Leo thought it would be a powerful statement to have a voice from the open-source community on stage. It would show their commitment to bridging the worlds of corporate innovation and grassroots development. It was the most cynical, self-serving, and utterly brilliant PR move I had ever seen. They weren't just stealing my code, they were trying to co-opt my entire philosophy, to use my integrity as a shield for their own lack of it. My phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was giddy, effervescent. "Charlotte, darling, did you get the email? Leo told us all about it. Isn't it wonderful? He's making such an effort to include you in his big day. I am so proud of him for being so thoughtful." I felt a strange and terrible calm settle over me. The anger and grief receded, replaced by a cold, diamond-hard clarity. They hadn't just given me an insult. They had given me a stage, a microphone, an audience of the most powerful people in their world. They wanted me to be a prop in their play. They had no idea I was about to rewrite the script. "Yes, Mom," I said, my voice eerily steady. "I got it. It is a wonderful opportunity." "Oh, you'll be brilliant," she gushed. "Just talk about your little projects. They'll find it so charming." The line between tragedy and farce had blurred into non-existence. I hung up the phone and looked at my monitor, where the ether, sever_all_nodes, function still glowed softly in the dark terminal. It was no longer a bug, it was a key. I opened my email and began to type my reply. "Dear Connect Sphere Board," I wrote. "Thank you for the generous invitation. I would be delighted to accept." The days leading up to the conference were a blur of surreal preparations, and ignored the frantic, well-meaning calls from my mother, offering to take me shopping for a power suit. I politely declined my father's offer to have his PR team punch up my speech. They imagined I was crafting a folksy, heartwarming tale about the joys of community coding, a gentle opening act for the main event of their son's coronation. They had no idea I was meticulously assembling a digital guillotine. My real work was done in the quiet hum of my apartment, with Alex as my sole confidant and co-conspirator. We weren't just planning a stunt, we were preparing for the fallout. We fortified the Ether servers, created backups and redundancies, and prepared a detailed public statement, complete with logs, timestamps, and a side-by-side code comparison that would be irrefutable. Alex was my rock, the one person who saw the situation with the same terrifying clarity that I did. "Are you sure about this, Char?" he asked me one night, his face pixelated and worried on my screen. "There's no going back from this. This isn't just taking down an app. You're detonating a family." "They detonated it a long time ago, Alex," I replied, the words tasting like ash. "They just didn't realize anyone was watching. This isn't about revenge, not really. It's about truth. For years they've told me that my work, my world, has no value. I'm just going to show them the real market price of what they stole." The plan was simple, elegant, and brutal. I wouldn't need a slide deck full of bullet points. My entire keynote would be a live demonstration. I would start by talking about the philosophy of open source, about Ether itself. Then, I would show the audience the app they were all there to celebrate, ConnectSphere, running live on the big screen. And right next to it, I would have a simple, black command line terminal. I would walk them through the story, piece by piece, revealing the truth, not with accusations, but with evidence. And for the finale, I would type one single line of code, the line that they had been foolish and arrogant enough to leave inside their stolen machine. The night before the conference, my brother called me. It was the first time he had initiated a call in months. His voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who owned the world. "Hey Char, just calling to see if you're ready for the big day. Not too nervous, I hope." The condescension was a reflex for him now, as natural as breathing. "I'm ready, Leo," I said. Good, good. Just keep it simple. Tell your story. Be authentic. The investors will love the whole David and Goliath vibe. It's great for the brand." "You have no idea what story I'm about to tell," I thought. "Don't worry," I said, my voice a perfect mask of calm. "I promise it will be memorable." "That's my girl," he said, and hung up. I stared at my phone, the silence of my apartment pressing in on me. That was it, the final piece of resolve I needed. He didn't see a sister, or a peer, or even a person. He saw a brand asset. Tomorrow, I would show him, and the entire world, exactly what this asset was worth. The auditorium was a cathedral of modern capitalism. It was cavernous, all brushed steel, glass and dark wood, with tiered seating that swept up into the shadows. The air hummed with a low, powerful thrum of anticipation and expensive cologne. Hundreds of people, investors in tailored suits, journalists with hungry eyes, tech luminaries with carefully cultivated auras of genius, filled the plush seats. A massive screen, the size of a small building, loomed over the stage, displaying the sleek ConnectSphere logo, a pulsing, interconnected orb of light. This was their temple, and today was their holiest day. I stood in the wings, a ghost in their machine, holding a simple laptop. My outfit was deliberately plain, dark jeans, a simple black sweater. It was the uniform of my world, not theirs. In the front row, I could see my family. My father, chest puffed out with pride, was holding court with a man who looked like he owned a small country. My mother, elegant in a silk dress, was waving to someone across the aisle, her smile radiant. They looked over at me, and my mother gave me a little wave, her expression a mixture of pride and pity, as if I were a child about to perform in a school play. My father gave me a sharp, confident nod and a thumbs up. "Knock 'em dead, sweetie," he mouthed. The irony was a physical weight in my chest. Leo walked onto the stage to a thunderous applause. He was a master of this environment, basking in the spotlight, his charisma washing over the audience like a warm wave. He was charming, he was funny, he was visionary. He spoke of disruption and paradigms, of synergy and the new digital frontier. He painted a picture of a future seamlessly connected by his app, a future he was selling them a piece of. "Innovation," he said, his voice resonating through the powerful sound system, "is not just about building something new. It's about seeing the world in a new way. It's about connecting ideas, connecting people, connecting the future." He was magnificent, a perfect, hollow vessel. Then he turned to me. "But we at ConnectSphere know that innovation doesn't just happen in corporate boardrooms. It happens in communities. It happens out of passion." And to speak to that, to give us a perspective, from that incredible world of open source development. It is my unique honor to introduce someone whose passion I have always admired. My sister, Charlotte Vance. The applause was polite, curious. As I walked towards the podium, I passed him. He squeezed my arm, a gesture of faux brotherly support. "You got this," he whispered, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Make me look good." I reached the podium, the warmth of 100 spotlights on my face. The silence of the vast room was a physical presence. I took a deep breath, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I looked out at the sea of faces, and I saw them, my family, beaming, oblivious. That single image gave me all the strength I needed. "Good morning," I said, my voice surprisingly clear and steady. "My name is Charlotte Vance, and I am a programmer." I began my speech, but not the one they were expecting. I didn't talk about my little projects. I talked about the philosophy of open source. I spoke of the digital commons, of knowledge shared freely, of the collaborative spirit that built the very foundations of the internet they were all profiting from. I could see some people in the audience shifting in their seats, a few checking their watches. My parents' smiles had become a little more fixed, a little more strained. This wasn't the charming, folksy story they had anticipated. "I want to tell you about one specific project," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "A project built on these principles of openness and collaboration. It's called Aether." I connected my laptop, and behind me, the giant screen switched from the ConnectSphere logo to the public code repository for Aether. The commit history, a long, scrolling list of updates, was clearly visible. My name, C_Vance, was on hundreds of them. Aether is an algorithm designed to link data in a novel, decentralized way. It's designed to find patterns, to create connections, to function almost like a digital intuition. I paused, letting my eyes sweep across the audience, finally landing on my brother. His smile was gone. It had been replaced by a tight, watchful stillness. "Some of you," I said, my voice dropping slightly, "might find its core logic familiar." A ripple of confusion went through the front rows. My father was frowning, looking from me to Leo, a question dawning in his eyes. "For instance," I said, my fingers moving quickly over my keyboard, "it's the same logic that powers the incredible ConnectSphere app." The screen behind me split. On the left was the Aether code repository. On the right, a live, running instance of the ConnectSphere app, its interface beautiful and dynamic. I heard a sharp collective intake of breath. This was not on the program. "An amazing piece of software," I said, gesturing to the ConnectSphere side of the screen. "Incredibly powerful, incredibly intuitive, and built on a foundation of open, free code, which is, in itself, a wonderful thing. A testament to the power of community." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Leo was ashen. He was standing in the wings, frozen, a statue of dread. But when you take something that was born in the light of transparency and lock it away in a proprietary black box, I continued, my voice hardening, you can sometimes forget what's inside. You might forget that the original architects left things behind. Tools, signatures, little secrets. Next to the two windows on the screen, I opened a third. It was a simple black terminal window with a single blinking cursor. The audience was utterly silent now. Every phone was up, recording. The journalists in the press pit looked like wolves who had just scented blood. "Every piece of code tells a story," I said, looking directly at my brother, my voice now echoing in the vast, silent hall. "A story of its creation, and sometimes it contains the instructions for its own destruction. A failsafe, if you will. A key left in the lock by an arrogant thief who never bothered to change it." I began to type, each keystroke echoing like a gunshot in the silent room. "Aether.sever, _all_knows." The line of code appeared on the screen, stark white against the black background. I didn't press enter, not yet. I let them all read it. I let him see it. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. He knew what it was. The strength of the open source community is its trust and its transparency, I said, my voice ringing with a clarity I had never felt before. Its weakness, for those who would exploit that trust, is that we leave the lights on. We have nothing to hide, and we see everything. This line of code is the end of this particular story. I looked at my parents. Their faces were crumbling, the pride replaced by a dawning, sickening understanding. I looked back at the screen, and I pressed enter. For a single silent second, nothing happened. Then on the right side of the screen, the beautiful ConnectSphere interface flickered. The seamless data streams fractured. The elegant icons were replaced with stark red error messages. Node connection severed. Core logic failure. Fatal exception. The entire interface dissolved into a cascade of digital gibberish. A meaningless wreck. A collective gasp. A huge, unified sound of shock swept through the auditorium. All around the room, people were snatching up their own phones, their faces illuminated by the frantic, useless glow of the dead app. ConnectSphere was gone. It had vanished from the digital world in the time it took to press a single key. The IPO was dead. The multi-billion-dollar company was a ghost. I looked at Leo, who seemed to have shrunk inside his expensive suit. His face was a void. He was utterly, completely broken. I gently placed the microphone back on its stand, the soft thud echoing in the stunned silence. I leaned in one last time. "My name is Charlotte Vance," I said softly, "and I am a programmer." Then I turned, and with a sense of calm I had never known, I walked off the stage as chaos erupted behind me. The green room backstage felt like the quiet eye of a hurricane. The distant roar of the panicked crowd was a muffled, chaotic sound through the thick door. Alex was there. He had flown in the night before, a surprise show of support. I hadn't even seen him in the wings. The moment the door closed behind me, he just wrapped me in a huge, tight hug. He didn't say a word, and in that moment, his silent, solid presence was the only thing holding me together. "You did it," he finally whispered into my hair. "You actually did it." I just nodded, my face pressed against his shoulder, my body trembling with the adrenaline crash. A frantic-looking man in a suit with a security badge knocked once, and then burst in. "Ma'am, we don't know what we should be doing." He looked terrified, as if I might delete the building's fire suppression system next. "Just make sure no one comes in," Alex said, his voice firm and steady, taking charge. "She needs a minute." The guard nodded dumbly and backed out, closing the door. A few minutes later, the door opened again. This time, without a knock, it was my father. His face, usually so ruddy and confident, was pale and slack. The look of a man who had just watched his entire portfolio, both financial and emotional, go up in flames. "Charlotte," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper, "what have you done?" He didn't sound angry. He sounded hollowed out, annihilated. And my mother followed him in, her face a mess of ruined makeup and disbelief. She was clutching her pearls, as if they were a life raft. "A life raft. Your brother," she sobbed, the words catching in her throat. "Leo, his entire life, everything he worked for, the dam inside me, the one that had held back a lifetime of hurt and frustration, finally broke." But it wasn't a flood of tears. It was a wall of ice. "His life's work," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "His life's work was built on my life's work. The work you called my little computer club. The work you told me to give up. The work that wasn't a real job. He didn't build an empire, Mother. He was a grave robber who got caught." They flinched, as if I had struck them. They had no response. The truth, delivered so plainly, had short-circuited their entire reality. They stood there, two ghosts in expensive clothes, their world shattered, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing for them. Not love, not hate, just a vast, empty distance. Leo never appeared. I found out later, he had been whisked away by his security team. his face hidden under a coat, like a common criminal. The story didn't just break, it detonated. By the time Alex and I slipped out a back exit, my name was the #1 trending topic worldwide. The headlines were savage and spectacular. IPO Cali PC. Connects for CEO's sister kills, billion-dollar app live on stage. The kill switch, how an open-source dev took down her brother's empire. The effed hubris, and a single line of code. Our prepared statement, which Alex released the moment I walked off stage, went viral. It laid out the evidence so clearly, so irrefutably, that there was no room for debate. The court of public opinion delivered its verdict in a matter of hours. I was a hero, a vigilante for programmer rights. Leo was a pariah. Connexsphere Inc. imploded. Investors filed lawsuits. The board resigned en masse. My brother, the tech wunderkind, vanished completely from public life. I gave one interview, a calm, factual video call, with a respected tech journalist, where I simply laid out the timeline of events. Then I turned off my phone and disappeared, letting the storm rage without me. The open source community, my community, rallied around me in a way that left me breathless. Donations poured into the praxis. Developers from all over the world started contributing to Aether, improving it, securing it, celebrating it. The project that had been my quiet passion was now famous, a symbol of integrity and the power of the commons. And in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by the digital noise of my vindication, I finally began to heal. A year can be a lifetime. The person who walked onto that stage is not the person I am today. The rage has cooled, leaving behind a quiet strength. The hurt has scarred over, a reminder of a battle fought and won. I no longer live in a small apartment, but I also don't live in a mansion. The praxis, now renamed the Aether Foundation, has a modest but functional office space in a converted warehouse downtown. Thanks to the flood of donations and a few strategic grants from foundations that believe in an open internet, we are a thriving nonprofit. I'm not a solitary coder anymore. I'm the director, leading a team of brilliant, dedicated people who share the same vision. We're building tools that matter. The work is still the work. The purpose is still the purpose. But now, the world sees its value. I am no longer seeking anyone's approval. The validation comes from the work itself, from the community we serve. The dynamics with my family are fractured, redefined. My parents tried to reach out a few months after the conference. Their calls were tentative, their tone stripped of its usual authority. They spoke of my success, the articles about the Aether Foundation, the respect I had garnered. They were trying to speak my new language, the language of a success they could finally recognize and measure. I keep them at a polite, firm distance. The conversations are short, superficial. The boundary I erected on that stage is made of steel. The trust, the intimacy, the hope that they would one day see me, that's all gone. There is a quiet sadness in that, but also a profound freedom. About 6 months ago, a thick envelope arrived at the office. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was from Leo. It wasn't an excuse or a justification. It was a letter, pages long, written on simple, plain paper. It was an apology. A real one. He wrote about the suffocating pressure to succeed, the culture of shortcuts he had fostered, the fatal arrogance of never looking too closely at a gift horse. He admitted that a junior developer, desperate to impress, had integrated Aether into their system, presenting it as his own clever solution. Leo, in his haste and hubris, had accepted the miracle without ever questioning its source. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just laid out the truth of his own moral failure with a brutal honesty I had never seen from him. He wrote that he was working for a small environmental nonprofit in another country, doing manual labor, trying to figure out how to be a person again, not a brand. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust him again, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of something other than anger or pity for him. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally starting to write his own code. So, What's the lesson in all of this? I suppose it's that your value is inherent. It exists whether or not anyone else sees it, validates it, or puts a price tag on it. For years, I let my family's definition of success make me feel small. I let their dismissal of my passion chip away at my own belief in it. Being underestimated, I've learned, can be a superpower. It allows you to work in the quiet, to build your strength, to become so undeniably good at what you do that when you finally decide to be seen, you cannot be ignored. The world will always have its Leo Vances, people who take shortcuts and chase applause. But the world is built by the Charlottes, the ones who do the work, who believe in the integrity of the process, and who know that true value lies not in what you can acquire, but in what you can create and share. I'd love to hear from you now. Have you ever been seriously underestimated in your career or in your family? How did you handle it? And what did you learn from it? Share your story in the comments below. This community is a place where those stories are valued. And if my journey resonated with you, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about finding your own strength in a world that doesn't always see it. Your support helps these messages reach the people who need to hear them most. Thank you so much for joining me today and for listening to my story. I hope it gives you a measure of strength, and I wish you all the very best on your own journeys.